reason I asked that question.
But I mean, because there's a big question here. There is an entire community that feels discriminated against by the president.
White men.
The Somali community feels discriminated against by the president. He called them garbage.
Joe Biden called us garbage. White American men are being discriminated on the basis of their race and gender.
Okay, so the Somali community was insulted when Trump used the word garbage, and the media loses its damn mind. But when Joe Biden uses the same exact words to describe millions of American white men included, suddenly it's silence. No emergency panels, no lectures about rhetoric, no concern for the people being targeted. And that silence tells you everything. Because if discrimination only matters when the right people are offended, then it's not principle. It's a political weapon. The moment you apply the standards evenly, the outrage disappears. And that's when their entire ideology begins to crack. Here is Breonna Lyman calmly forcing a CNN panel to confront the contradiction. And you can actually watch them struggle to say something as simple as that, yes, discrimination is wrong, no matter who it's aimed at.
Maybe the bigger question is, why is the vice president putting this out there, telling people to sue? That's the question.
Because discrimination is bad no matter who it is against. And do we all agree that discrimination on the basis of race or sex is bad? Can we all say yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Carrie, can you say yes to that?
But what numbers do you have that this is a systemic issue? This is a big problem.
I don't care if it was a one-off issue. Nobody should be discriminated against because of their race or their sex. Second of all, the Compact article you mentioned, he does a very detailed job building upon years of other evidence. The other thing we have to discuss here, I am a female. I would feel awful if I got a role over a black male just because I'm a female, because I had a different quota or target. It should always be based on meritocracy, on competency. I want whoever is most qualified for the job. And disparate incomes or disparate outcomes is not indicative that it was the result of racism. So we have to stop pretending like that is the, if, blacks have a slightly higher unemployment rate or, slightly lower, that's okay.
Well, it's double, it's not slight.
My point is it doesn't matter what it is.
Let's push pause on this and we will continue this conversation in just a sec.
Wow, what a joke. Notice what happened the moment the standards are applied evenly. Suddenly it's less push pause. Not because the conversation is unclear, but because it's getting uncomfortable for these lefties. This isn't about time management. It's about control. When the argument starts to slip, the discussion gets shut down. Debates turn into damage control. That pause isn't natural. It's a signal that the narrative is at risk, because if they keep going, they're forced to admit something they've been avoiding the entire time. That discrimination is wrong, no matter who it's aimed at. And equal standards expose the contradiction they don't want to answer. But no, what do these lefties do? Bring up our founding fathers as a symbol of racism.
You refer to 2020 in the name of George Floyd. I think it wasn't just in the name of George Floyd.
Well, that's what the riots were about.
I think that this country had a racial reckoning, and they understood, please let me finish because I let you finish. Mm-hmm. They had a racial reckoning, and they understood that this country had done some things that were very unfair, especially to marginalize, especially to black people. And they were giving tributes and statues to people who were slave owners, who were considered heroes at one point, like depending
Jefferson
on how you look.
Yeah,
well, I can tell you what else he did. I can tell you what else Thomas Jefferson did, right?
Being a slave owner was not the unique thing about Thomas Jefferson.
And the second thing is that once they realized that these people, according to history, were not really the heroes that they had been portrayed as.
They absolutely are the heroes.
They realized that they had did awful things to people who did not deserve it, who could not speak for themselves.
You're speaking freely because of people like Jefferson.
I'm speaking freely because I'm a free black woman and I'm allowed to speak freely.
With the First Amendment.
And the reality is that they may have overcorrected, but right now they're overcorrecting in another way. The fact that Trump is putting his name on every single thing and you want to normalize it like it's normal tells me that you're the problem and not the solution. This man's mental acuity is off. He clearly is unstable and no one's talking about it. You have a walk of fame and you're talking about other presidents in a derogatory way. This is the highest office in the land. And I'm just going to go back to the basis. What he's done is disrespected it. And people such as yourself want to normalize that behavior. And what Maria Shriver was suggesting was like, this isn't funny anymore. Let's take a look at what's happening. You can't normalize this behavior. This is one of many things that this president president has done that should not be normalized. And if we keep continuing to look away, we will find ourselves in a state of disrepair that we cannot come back from.
Yeah, hold on, wait. I have to respond to this.
Hold on. We'll come back to you.
Joe got to speak so much before.
What a freaking joke. A state of disrepair we can't come back from? According to who? CNN's vibes department? You say this every single time you don't get your way. No numbers, no benchmark, no explanation, just dramatic end of democracy language. We've supposedly been 5 minutes from collapse for years now, and somehow the country's still here. This isn't insight, it's theatrics. When the argument falls apart, you hit the panic button and hope fear does the work. Facts can't. So I'll ask again slowly, where is the evidence this is irreversible? Oh yeah, there isn't any. Here's Vance laying it out in the simplest terms possible, and this is the speech that had these lefties absolutely furious.
Unlike the left, we stand against treating anybody, and I love what Nikki said about this. We don't treat anybody different because of their race or their sex. So we have relegated DEI to the dustbin of history, which is exactly where it belongs. In the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore. And if you're an Asian, you don't have to talk around your skin color when you're applying for college, because we judge people based on who they are, not on ethnicity and things they can't control. We don't persecute you for being male, for being straight, for being gay, for being anything. The only thing that we demand is that you be a great American patriot, and if you're that, you're very much on our team.
Wow, and this is what CNN is upset about? Listen to what was actually said here. No race-based treatment, no sex-based preference. Judge people on who they are, not characteristics. Don't force people to apologize for their skin color. Demand one standard, be a good American, and somehow that's controversial. What part of this is supposed to make this panel clutch their pearls? Because from where I'm sitting, this sounds like the most basic, unifying, common sense message imaginable. And yet CNN reacts like someone just announced the end of civilization. Let's be clear about what's happening. The left and CNN has built an entire moral framework around division. Everything must be filtered through race, gender, sexuality, and grievance. If you remove that framework, if you say no, actually, we are all judged equally, you're not threatening people, you're threatening their political leverage. That's why they're mad. CNN doesn't hear we don't treat people differently by race as unity. They hear it as an attack on a system they've defended for years. Because if Americans are judged by merit and character, then what happens to DEI consultants? What happens to race-based talking points? What happens to the endless segments about systematic oppression where no one can ever define a measurable end goal? Gone. Straight to the dustbin of history, exactly where it belongs. And let's talk about the outrage over saying people shouldn't have to apologize for being white. Why does that trigger them so much? Who exactly benefits from telling people they're morally suspect because of their skin color? Because that's not unity. It's not progress. It's not healing. It's resentment politics. And CNN has been selling it for years. The same goes for college admissions. Saying Asians shouldn't have to talk around their race when applying isn't radical. It's an acknowledgement of reality. Everyone knows these policies exist. Everyone knows they disadvantage certain groups. And everyone knows CNN pretends not to see it until someone says it out loud. Then suddenly it's dangerous rhetoric. And notice what CNN never does. They never explain why this is wrong. They don't point to the harm. They don't cite data. They don't argue outcomes. They just emote. They escalate. They act offended and hope that replaces an argument. Because emotionally reacting to this is easier than answering the obvious question. How is equality divisive? The only way this message sounds threatening is if your entire worldview depends on Americans seeing each other as competing identity groups instead of citizens. CNN isn't mad because this divides people. They're mad because it doesn't. It removes the hierarchy. It removes the grievance ladder. It removes the excuse to pit Americans against each other for clicks and control. So yeah, are you kidding me? If CNN is angry about this, that tells you everything you need to know about what they actually stand for. What a freaking joke.